Hello, everybody. Happy January 20th, 2022. Time for another Facebook Live Global Travel Update. Peter Greenberg here with you. Lots of things to talk about today. I always like to celebrate this week in history. So let's start with what happened this week in 1970. That's the week that the 747s flew commercial passengers for the very first time. And this week in 1976, the first Concords flew with passengers, with paying passengers. So a little piece there to make you feel older, at least in my case, especially today. Let's move on and talk about some crazy stuff in the news. It's the 5G showdown, the shootout at the OK Corral between the FAA, the FCC, the airlines, the pilots, and throw yourself in there too. But while we're doing that and while I explain that, a little piece of housekeeping. If you've got any comments or questions for me, you know how to do it. Send them in. You can always email me as well, peter@petergreenberg.com. Let us know about that. We'll either answer it online or on our radio show, Eye on Travel, which will be coming this week from where I am right now, the Hard Rock Hotel in San Diego. And so I'll look forward to hearing you and you hearing me on Saturday. Of course, it's on Eastern time from 10 a.m. to 1 p.m. If you can't find a station in your area or can't listen at that time, no problem. You can always log on to our website with the appropriate name, petergreenberg.com, and we stream it live. And it also becomes a podcast next week. So lots of opportunities to get the updates. But let's talk about the update now about 5G. Many of you remember, and it wasn't that long ago, that you couldn't use your cell phone or your laptop or any other electronic device on an airplane. There was a degree of worry and concern about RF interference on sensitive cockpit instruments. But guess what? The FAA decided to test that, and they ramped up the RF interference on every conceivable electronic device at a distance of only 1 foot from those cockpit instruments. And guess what they discovered? Nothing. Zero. No interference whatsoever, with only one exception, and that was high-powered marine band radio. So I like to say, if you're ever on a plane and you see a guy come on in a camouflage outfit with a big box on his back and a whiplash antenna, okay, at that point, get off the plane. Other than that, no problemo. Except now we're not talking about interference from within the plane. We're talking about interference from very powerful 5G cell phone towers outside the plane. And guess what? There is interference. It's with the radio or radar altimeters carried on every plane that's flying, especially the 777s because of the type of altimeter. Why is that important? Because in low visibility situations or even mild cloud cover, the pilots need a Cat 1, Cat 2, or Cat 3 approach, which relies on that radio altimeter to let them know exactly where they are above the ground so that they actually hit the instruments at the right time, they slow at the right time, and they brake at the right time. If that's not working, they can't land. And if they can't land, they're not going to take off, which explains why so many flights were canceled yesterday and Tuesday from airlines overseas that didn't want a chance getting all the way over here during the winter months to find out there was low visibility and have to divert. Now, the cell phone companies and the FCC there says there's no problem whatsoever. What? In France, there's already a rule at airports that they have to power down the 5G towers anytime there's no visibility situation to allow planes to land. Are they doing that now? Well, there's a sort of a temporary agreement, but blink chicken. Let me get a big fat guess as to who's going to blink first. It's going to have to be the companies. This is a matter of public safety. It's not negotiable. And you know what? We're going to have to see all those towers powered down anytime low visibility situation. I'm in San Diego. You have a marine layer at 8 o'clock in the morning and you have 5G towers, planes can't land, right? You have a worse visibility situation in San Francisco, planes can't land. Boston fogged in, planes can't land. Now, do they have the technology to land? Of course. It's called Category 3. It's been in existence for years. It's an interactive system that actually has to be at the airport and at the airplane itself. The two systems talk to each other, and it's a completely hands-off landing. It's so good. It's not just a hands-off landing, it's even hands-off braking. The only thing they can't do is taxi you to the gate. Other than that, it's a very good system, but it has to have all the systems working. And if your radio altimeter is not working, you're not flying. So that explains to you what's going on. All right. So watch this space. It's not going to be handled quickly, or maybe it will, but my guess is the airlines are going to win out, and the FAA is going to win out over the FCC. It's a little intramural fight going on, but now you know what's going on. All right. A lot of changes now with foreign countries, including Hawaii. You can't just show a proof of vaccination. You have to show a proof of a booster. I think that's a good thing. Remember, we're coming up on the 1-year anniversary of the availability of the vaccine, so it just stands to reason you got to get it re-upped. So be aware of that and be prepared to show that, not just at airports and not just in countries, but at restaurants and other public activities as well. Now, let us celebrate a year of crazy figures. The TSA has announced all the bizarre items they've seized in 2021. And you have to ask yourself this question: what were they thinking? Not the TSA, but the people who attempted to bring this stuff through the security checkpoints, right? Now, we're not talking about guns. We'll get to that in a second. We're talking about chainsaws. You heard me. They seized chainsaws being put on as carry-on bags. I mean, Freddy Krueger, paging Freddy Krueger. Also, bear spray and crazy chemicals. Other devices, too numerous to list. And then, of course, we get to guns. That's the crazy one. The TSA seized over 5,700 weapons last year, the most in recorded history of the TSA. Here's the crazy part, and this is truly scary. It's not just that they seized the weapons, congratulations on that, but 85% of them were loaded. Yikes. All right, let's hope people come to their senses on that one, and especially the chainsaw. This one, defies comprehension. All right, a very interesting development in the cruise industry. No, we're not talking about cruise ships canceling because of COVID. We had that situation earlier in the week when NCL canceled a 10-day cruise midway through the cruise and basically stayed out at sea. Now, passengers got a full refund and they got a credit on a future cruise. But why did that happen? Was it because of a quote-unquote outbreak on the ship? No. It was about ports that were worried about letting the ship dock. And in every cruise ship contract, pre-pandemic as well, the cruise line reserves the right to do what? To change ports in the case of a force majeure, an act of God, civil disturbance, war, etc. This certainly qualified. But in this situation, it wasn't just changing a port and substituting a port. There were no more ports to substitute. So that's why they're out at sea. But we're not talking about that because 220 ships are continuing their itineraries with no problems. There is a problem, though, with Crystal Cruises. Last night, the line suspended their cruises, all of them, through April and in some cases through May, because their parent corporation had filed for insolvency. This is not a pretty picture. The banks and the creditors are going to come in. People who were hoping to take a cruise are not going to have one. It's up in the air as to whether or not they're going to get a refund because the liquidators come in and you're in a long line of creditors and you're unsecured. Well, you might be secured if you pay with a credit card, and that's going to be a very interesting situation with the banks and the credit card companies. But it's a sad day for Crystal, a luxury brand. They have 3 ships. We'll see what happens. We even did a story recently on their newest ship, the Crystal Endeavor, which right now, as I'm speaking, is completing its last cruise in the Antarctic, and then probably just going to be tied up at a dock until this is resolved. But I wanted to let you know that if you did buy a Crystal cruise and you paid with a credit card, I guarantee you that you will be talking to your travel agent or the credit card company like today. Like to have guests on the show, and I'm very happy to have one with us today. He's an old pal of mine. He's the CEO and founder of The Points Guy. Let's welcome on board Brian Kelly. There he is. Hey, Brian.
Peter Greenberg, thanks for having me.
I'm happy to see you, man. So much to talk to you about. I was just reporting the number from the TSA of how many things they seized that were so crazy last year. And then, of course, it's the FAA numbers about how many unruly, disruptive, or downright violent passengers there were last year. We're talking nearly 5,981 incidents to be precise. Is there any end in sight for this, do you think?
Well, they in 2022 they've seen a decrease in these incidents. So as a forever optimist, I can only hope that we've gone peak crazy and we're seeing our way out of it. But the numbers are staggering, and it just goes to remind you to be as nice as possible, even when those frontline workers are stressed out. Well, now you know why, because everyone's insane. So if they're snippy with you, try not to give it back to them and have a little bit of grace when traveling.
Or be prepared to be banned.
Yeah.
Right? It's going to be an interesting situation now.
Yeah, and I just heard you talking about Crystal Cruises. What a shame that is. And just another reminder to always put your travel on credit cards with travel protections, and using a debit card or cash or a wire to pay for something is a terrible idea. And these are unfortunate realities in the travel business. And especially when airlines go bust, they don't give you a warning. They'll just stop flights one day and you could be stranded.
Yeah. And, the problem with this is so many people rely on goodwill as opposed to good common sense.
Right.
And in this situation, we're seeing something called a holdback happening in some cases. And that's where credit card companies will say, okay, I'm going to buy a cruise, let's say on Crystal Cruises, and I give them my American Express card or my Visa card. And that money never gets to Crystal right away because the credit card companies determine they may be in financial difficulty. So they hold those back sort of in escrow. And they say, okay, if Brian Kelly bought the cruise and it's sailing in April, we'll release those funds to the cruise line when Brian's on the ship in April. And
I remember when the pandemic first hit, they do it. They hold a ton back from airlines as well. And I remember the airlines begging, hey, give us that money, or else we're going to go bust. It was a astronomical sum. So
it is. In fact, what they're doing to protect people in many cases triggers the demise of some of these travel providers because they can't make their money.
Like a run on the bank.
Exactly. Speaking about run on the bank, you gave me a perfect segue here. Let's talk about frequent flyer miles. We know that we determined this last year. It was not really a surprise to you or me, but to a lot of people it was, that the airline frequent flyer programs are actually worth more than the airlines. And they mortgage them for an amazing amount of money. We're talking billions and billions of dollars. And now I keep hearing that the airlines are going to try to devalue the mileage, making it harder to earn them, harder to redeem them, and decrease the availability of miles as we get into the rest of this year. I've been telling people to be strategic, to not depend on the airlines as banks, but to realize you're not accruing interest on these miles, and to be strategic, and then basically book something out 330 days out maybe, so that you're going to get at least availability, and you have a redemption that's not going to increase.
You're totally right, Peter. And especially even by making a booking a year out that you're not sure you're going to take, most of these programs now will let you cancel and get those miles back free of charge. That's like one of the few silver linings of the pandemic. But what people really need to take a look at, especially now we're getting 2 years into this pandemic, is expiration dates. And I just have to point out, American Airlines starting, a lot of airlines gave a reprieve during the pandemic. But starting April 1, American Airlines, one of the largest airlines in the world, is going to start expiring miles if you haven't had activity in 18 months. So for people who haven't traveled or had any activity, don't have the co-branded credit card, which is a lot of people, I really kind of want everyone to just double check your balances and your expiration dates because, large sums of miles could start to be getting expired again.
And speaking of expiration dates, let's talk about your picks for 2022. Where should people go this year? What are your hotspot picks?
I was just in Mexico this past weekend and had a great time. North of Puerto Vallarta and Punta Mita, we saw whales in the ocean. It was a pretty seamless travel experience. But I do think summer 2022, it's not going to be as big as the airlines hoped, but it's going to be a good year for Europe. United has tons of new routes coming nonstop to the Azores and Palma de Mallorca. The airlines are betting big that 2022 will be the big return of Europe. And I know so many Americans are just, we've done the islands, you've done, your beach vacations, national parks, but there's nothing like the culture of a European capital or getting that experience. So I do think summer 2022, I do bank on Europe becoming a hot spot once again.
And you're seeing a lot of flights to like Croatia, nonstop flights, and new nonstop service on United to Amman and Jordan. Totally cool.
Yeah, Americans even going to be flying nonstop to Qatar and just in time for the World Cup. So I also think Dubai, was just announced a top travel destination for TripAdvisor. I spent last New Year's there in 2020 to 21. It was incredible. I think people underestimate Dubai. I did myself. People used to always say, oh, it's just Vegas without the casinos, a soulless desert with glistening hotels. But actually, when you peel a level deeper, there's actually tons of, it's like the United Nations, I think it's like what New York was 150 years ago, with so many different cultures, really cool neighborhoods. So I think Dubai is a top destination too, with pretty good weather, as long as you don't go in the heat of the summer. But yeah.
I got it. Now, last question for you. I talked about how difficult it is or becoming to earn and redeem miles. There was a time, not in the too distant future or too distant past, as I say, where you could actually refer to a chart and know exactly what mileage you needed to go anywhere, whether it was 25,000 miles for a domestic ticket or what an upgrade was. Those charts are gone now, right? It's all dynamic pricing time. You had an app.
Yeah.
You had an app that basically helped me navigate that stuff so I could have it in real time. And then all of a sudden, the airlines are not happy with you.
Well, I wouldn't say airlines because it's just American Airlines. We're able, I believe in empowering consumers. Points and miles are confusing. You've got your credit card points, hotel, airline. Realistically, not every consumer is going to go in and check every single account or have an Excel spreadsheet. So we created the TPG app so you could track it in one spot, and we will alert you if your miles are going to expire. When we were testing this last year internally, I had these random Japan Airlines miles from an old Emirates trip that I had transferred and canceled. I totally forgot about. I literally would have lost 150,000 miles if it wasn't for my own app. But American just cease and desisted us and said, no, we don't want you letting people know when their miles expire. So we are officially fighting back. They've done this to a lot of smaller startups that have no choice but to fold. But I think this time they chose the wrong person to bully around. Our parent company, Red Ventures, were, ready for this fight, because at the end of the day, airlines sell billions of miles to credit card companies. They charge merchants. The consumer gets these miles. They need people like the points guy helping them use the miles. So I think Americans should focus on investing in their operations and the quality of their experience versus suing consumer websites like the points guy. But
exactly,
we'll see what happens.
We will. Brian Kelly, always a pleasure, sir. Enjoy redeeming your miles, and we'll follow up on everything else that's going on, especially how the dynamics of the mileage programs are going to change, because I keep hearing from everybody they're going to start devaluing the miles again.
Yep. And I'll just, not ending on a negative note, but Marriott, Bonvoy, they're going to dynamic as well this spring. So I would urge people, if you have Marriott points, it might make sense to lock in some future stays now, because we don't really know what's going to come when they switch to dynamic pricing this spring. So I agree with your advice, Peter. Book now, lock in good rates when you see it, and then decide later if you're going to take the trip.
My last question, does dynamic pricing ever benefit me ever?
It does, actually. We've done some studies. It's not all bad news, and sometimes you can still get good deals. Delta 5,000 miles on certain flights, but you got to be in the know, and that's the whole point of the TPG app. It's so confusing to the everyday person. We want to curate deals that are relevant to you. Otherwise, it's impossible to get ahead. So
it's amazing.
Yeah,
it is. Brian Kelly, the founder and the CEO, and my buddy from the Points Guy. Thanks for joining us, man.
Thanks for having me, Peter.
You got it, man. Thanks. Hey, time for our quiz. This is a fun one. I'm going to show you pictures of airports around the world and see if you can identify them. I got to tell you something. Some of them are really difficult and some of them are no-brainers. Here's number one. Which one is it, guys? Are you ready? The answer is it's Beijing. All right, let's go to number two. Now, this is a no-brainer. I'm not giving you any time to answer this because you know the answer is Denver. All right, let's go to three. Take a look. One of my favorite airports in one of my favorite cities. I'll give you a hint. I lived there for 25 years. Answer, Bangkok. All right, here's number four. This one's easy, especially if you live in Los Angeles. Figure it out. No, it's not LAX. It's the old Bob Hope Airport, Hollywood Burbank, right there. All right, number five. Another no-brainer. No, it's not Burbank. It's LAX. By the way, that theme restaurant, it's been around for years. It's closed. Everybody's ever tried to run it. It's been a white elephant, but as an architectural piece, it looks great. I hope somebody can do something with it and open up something there soon, like they did with the TWA terminal at JFK. All right, let's go to the next one. Where is it? This is a tougher one. I told you some of them would be tough. No one's going to get this one. It's in Morocco. It's Marrakesh. All right, number 7. A lot of you have been there. Brian just talked about it. It's Dubai. All right, number 8. No one's going to get this. Trust me. It's in Uruguay. It's in Montevideo. It's the Carrasco International Airport. And then number 9, a very cool airport, one of the coolest airports for all sorts of reasons, Singapore. And then number 10, another difficult one for you, but it's one of the newer airports. It is Shenzhen. All right. Those are your 10 airports. How'd you do? How many have you been to? All right. How many were you stuck at? All right. Let's keep going now to your comments and say hello to everybody today and answer some of your questions. I'm going to stream up here. All right. We have greetings from Richmond, Virginia and Atchison, Kansas. Tanzania. All right. We'll be there soon. Remember, Royal Tour of Tanzania premieres the week of April 18th. Check your local listings on PBS. We'll have more information about that a little bit later. All right. Tony's saying hi from Prescott, Arizona. And I got coordinates today from Patrick Cooney. He's trying to be a smartass. That's okay, Patrick. I forgive you. And here we are. Hello from a cold Tulsa. That's right. You know what? Check our website. We do have a wonderful piece on one of the hidden cities of America and one of the better cities of America and one of the more underrated cities of America, Tulsa. Check it out. Let me know what you think. All right. Gail says hi. Sahil Hussein says hi. Oh, my goodness. He's calling in from the Andaman Islands in India. I've been there. Love it. Okay. Will I comment on the cruise lines? Yeah, I did. I talked about Crystal. All the other cruise lines are operating, and they're operating at a majority of their schedule. Look, let's get the numbers down here. And this is for Helen. The numbers are this. Of the 1 million+ people who have cruised since the CDC allowed the cruise lines to resume sailing, the number of COVID cases is 0.2%. And those are all repeat cases, right? They're breakthrough cases of people who've already been vaccinated and boosted. If you're a community in America and you have a caseload of 0.2%, you would throw a party. So put those in perspective. When my counterparts in the news media call that an outbreak, that's irresponsible. Are there cases? There are. The most number of cases I've seen has been 1.5% on a ship. So let's get real here. All right, another Tanzania connection. All right, everybody's calling in. And from Nairobi, hello, Joseph. And of course, we go from Nairobi to Burton, Mississippi. Karina's saying hi from Florida. Will cancellations by airlines in the U.S. affect outbound shipping to Europe? No, I'm not concerning what that is. You have to tell me a little bit more. John, has any agency actually tested 5G against radar altimeter? Of course they have. That's why we have a problem here. Remember, the 5G was operational in Europe before it became operational here in a big way. That's where they determined they had the problems. So it's not exactly a news bulletin. It's a question of how you're going to handle it. Simple as that. Sandy said, good morning, but you didn't tell me from where. That's okay. Lois says hello from Georgia. Okay. All right. Is this happening? Terry wants to know. The UK, Scotland ended all coronavirus restrictions. Germany and Czech Republic have canceled all. Look at this. 20 U.S. states have now canceled all coronavirus restrictions. Okay. Guys, let's get real. The coronavirus is not going to be eradicated. It's going to be managed. And the question is, how well are we going to manage it? How fast, how sensitively, and how intelligently? And as we realize that the current variant, as transmissible as it may be, is easily manageable, we adjust accordingly. Now, does that mean you don't have to have a vaccine? No. Does that mean all bets are off? No. You're still going to have to prove vaccination and booster. It's going to become a part of our way of life. You're still going to wear a mask. As long as Americans are still refusing to get vaccinated, yes. We're coming up with a deadline of March 18th or 19th as a decision date to whether or not to extend the federal mask mandate on public transportation. Count on it. It's going to be extended. That's the double whammy we have to deal with, right? People, look, I'm going to make a statement now that is not a political statement. Okay, you want me to say that again? It's not a political statement. People who refuse to be vaccinated are threatening my life, and they're threatening your life, and they're threatening your livelihood. Forgetting all that, let's just talk about life. That's a public health statement. Let's figure this out. All right. Pembroke Pines, Florida. Hello, Ben. Sandy Mills now, she says she's in Chatsworth. Just got back from St. Augustine. Okay. We have Oroville from Helen. Robert says Spain, February 1st must show booster shot too. Exactly. That's what I'm saying. Okay. All right. Tia says, trying this again, flying this summer from Washington to where? Oh, I see what you're saying. All right. You're flying this summer. All right. It's only January 20th. When are you? Oh, you say July 18th. Now we're talking. Okay. You know what? Buy the tickets now. But remember, do not buy non-refundable tickets. And you also want to know, should I purchase nonstops now, even though it's at the top of our budget? Anytime you have a choice between a nonstop flight and a connecting flight, you exponentially increase your chances for a screw up. Either you, your bags, your schedule. Why would you do that? Weather. I always go for the nonstop. Okay, Terry says hi from Chile, Michigan. Melissa says, I'm heading to the lower Danube in April and will be 6 months since booster. Do you think we will need another booster at 6 months? We're waiting for that guidance from the CDC, but there are people there believing we're going to get a fourth shot. And you know what? I'm one of those people who believes we're going to need one. So prepare for that. Okay. Patty says politeness wins. It does. Melinda says the disruptive passengers take so much away from the airline crews who are trying to pay attention to safety and service. Look, we don't have to have a war. Here's my advice. I've said it before, and nobody's listening to me. Airports have to embrace the fourth quarter NFL rules. No liquor served within 45 minutes of a plane's boarding time at any airport retail establishment. How do you do that? It's based on the boarding time printed on your boarding pass, right? You go to a bar at the airport, you want to have a drink, no problem. You want to have a drink within 45 minutes of the flight? Can't serve you. Too many people we're not talking about people drinking on the plane. We're talking about people getting drunk before they get on the plane, and they're walking down that jetway already tanked. Add a little altitude and pressure to that. What could possibly go wrong? All right. We need to do that. And the airport retail establishments need to be responsible about that. All right. Crust is saying hello from Uganda. We know that they're open there. Thank you for that. Celeste says, I heard Crystal Endeavor has been sold to Lindblad. Not necessarily true. It is up for sale. The bankers want to sell it. But there are a lot of people in play for it. Silver Sea wants it, which is part of Royal Caribbean. Carnival may want it. There are a lot of ships out there, a lot of shipping lines now that would want it. It's a brand new ship. It's just a matter of changing the name. Maybe not even changing the name, but changing the brand and off and running. It is a great asset to have. I'm sorry to see the Crystal brand leave. It's entirely possible someone may buy it entirely and keep the name, because the name does engender a great amount of passenger goodwill. For those of you who have ever been on a Crystal ship, it is high-end luxury, and I've never heard of a Crystal passenger having a really bad time, except during the pandemic when they were getting trouble getting what? Their refunds. But in terms of the overall cruise experience, it was a great product. And let's see what happens. But the answer to your question about Lindblad is not yet. Okay. All right. Yes, about the holdbacks, it's true. Melissa says, kill them with kindness always works. I always try to put myself in the shoes of the person behind the counter. Why? Because before I ever got to that counter, they were either beaten up by other passengers or beaten up by their own company. So why would I want to pile on? I basically approach the counter these days saying, I'm sorry for what you're going through, because I know it's bad. First of all, we're dealing with an understaffing situation. We're dealing with angry people, on both sides of the counter. And you got to find some common ground. Once you find common ground in any situation, not just travel, in any situation, with your dry cleaner, it doesn't matter. Then you got a conversation in that common ground. You learn something, your teammates, and you solve problems together. Okay. Here we go. Hello from Carmen and Patty. Tanya says, I got in just in time. I just returned from the Antarctica on the Crystal Endeavor. The experience was incredible. I hope Crystal is able to resume operations. There you go. Tanya, you were lucky, and it's a lovely, beautiful ship. We were actually on it as it came out of the shipyard last July in its first stop in Iceland. We didn't sail on it, but I actually toured the ship. And let's hope for the best. Okay, MW says, is there an advantage to using an annual travel insurance plan? How does it work as trips cost different amounts? It's not based on the cost of the trip. It's based on the number of trips you're doing with possible exclusions to different destinations that may not be covered. Always important to read the fine print of the policy. But if you're going to travel more than 2 or 3 times a year, get the annual plan. We're talking about trip cancellation and interruption insurance, and especially medical evacuation and repatriation insurance. That's what you need to know, but you need to find out about age exclusions, pre-existing exclusions, and of course, destination exclusions. Not a lot of trip cancellation and interruption insurance available for trips, let's say, to Syria. You get what I'm saying? Okay. All right. Yes, we didn't talk about that today. Terry Pierce says, prayers for Tonga and the islands. Did anybody see the satellite photos of when that volcano went up in Tonga? That is truly terrifying. And as you know, it severed the undersea cable that provided communications to that island country, including internet. So basically, we're not hearing from anybody right now. That's a very scary thought, and our hearts and prayers are with them as the nearby countries are rushing to try to do a temporary fix to establish communications. When we know more, I will let you know more. Okay. From Joan Lurie Farm, my old buddy from LA. Hello, Joan. Melinda. Thank you, Melinda. Patty Ford's in Denver. Melinda's in Denver. How did Patty Ford get to Bangkok? So I have no idea what you're talking about. Oh, you're guessing. Excuse me. You were guessing the airports. I'm a little late on the uptake today. Sorry. And Patty says Uruguay is fabulous. It is. That's the hidden gem of South America, folks. There's a reason why all the folks in Buenos Aires go to Uruguay to vacation. Figure it out. Okay. Hello from 10 degrees in Chicago. That's beachfront weather when you come to Madison, Wisconsin. I know that. All right. Debbie says hello from Boynton Beach. And okay. Oh, now Patrick is telling me where he's from. That's why he gave me his coordinates. He's on the Grand Princess steaming towards Honolulu. Let us know how that goes, Patrick. All right. Do I know about Italy? Sharon wants to know, changing vaccination status, last dose required within 6 months. This is what's happening. That's why we're talking about booster. If you're in line for a booster now, get it. You're going to be required to show it. It's going to happen, folks. Okay. Richard says, everyone thinks I'm crazy. Well, let's see what happens here on your question, Richard. But I plan on booking a tour from San Antonio, Texas to China through Trafalgar as soon as the virus dies down. How long does it take to get a visa? And do you feel it's a good idea to take a tour of China? China has tons of history, and I'm a big history buff. Well, I'll never turn down an opportunity to go to China. The idea is this. Once everything opens up, the Chinese have processed visas very well, and they now are giving you a multiple entry 10-year visa. And that's the one you want to get. Because once you go, you're going to want to go back. I could spend 8 lifetimes and never see all of China. I feel the same way about India. And that's not just the size of it, it's the different cultures and the different history. So yes, and Trafalgar is a great opportunity for you. They do a great job. just remember, with Trafalgar or anybody else, get to a mutually agreeable definition of terms about what your refund rights are in the case of a cancellation. Okay. Tia says it was Barcelona. My answer is still the same. Book it now. Any thoughts on changes in travel entry restrictions to the Netherlands and Belgium? Yeah, the restrictions are booster time. Got to show a proof of a booster. Okay, Marion said you spoke about 2 passports to avoid unfriendly countries. Am I okay with 1 going to Israel and Russia within 3 months? Yes, you are. Just make sure that when you get to Israel, before you hand your passport to the immigration person, because they tend to become fast sometimes, is say, please do not stamp my passport. And they will put a piece of paper with a stamp in the passport that they will then remove when you leave the country. Don't lose that piece of paper, though. All right? You'll be fine. Susan says, any thoughts on travel to Portugal in May? Is frequent testing required during the trip? Well, right now, first of all, May is a beautiful month in Portugal. We shot 2 of our television shows there, including one in the Azores, so I can speak from experience. Yes, a number of countries are now going to a test upon arrival as well. Portugal may be there. But you know what? It's easy now. Okay. Steven says, I'm fully vaccinated and got COVID. I'm now in Cozumel. Well, enjoy your quarantine. And by the way, I hope it's a mild case, or maybe you're asymptomatic. In the next 3 days, you'll be fine, if everybody else's experience is any indication. Okay, Pamela says, greetings from Silverdale, Washington. Okay. Cheryl's going to Israel. Congratulations, Cheryl. Cheryl Briesmeister. We love Cheryl. Cheryl worked at American Airlines. I'm not going to tell you how many years. We love her. She just retired about 6 months ago and is now traveling the world. Anybody who ever went through Miami, who ever had a problem while traveling on American or just wanted help, Cheryl was the angel. Cheryl, we miss you, and have a great trip to Israel. Alexander says, greetings from Switzerland. The #1 ski destination in Europe has record numbers. Not surprising. Okay. I'm looking here. Going to Israel. Dana says, going to Israel in the beginning of February. Do I think I will be going? I think you will. Tony says, what's the scoop on flying to Paris? How is the COVID infection rate? 2 separate issues here. No issue flying to Paris if you're vaccinated, if you're boosted, and they have not closed the door to Americans. At one point, they did close the door to the Brits because of their high infection rates, but I think you'll be fine. Okay, now I want to share with you something that I find really funny and laughable. We get sent all the time new travel products to test, to see if they work. And we all know that, necessity is the mother of invention. So let me give you the background before I show you this item. When I was in college, I perfected the art of, we all flew in the back of the plane. I still do fly in the back of the plane. And I perfected the fine art of doing what? Sleeping on the tray table, right? What other choice did you have? And then came like the neck pillow, which sometimes worked, sometimes didn't. It really only worked if you were on the window seat and kind of nuzzle up. Well, it's still a problem, especially if you're in the center seat. How do you sleep on a plane? Or how do you do it where you're not going to have back aches and neck aches because you're just not sleeping in a comfortable position? Well, there's a company out there that invented something called, I'm going to show this to you. It's called the Kip Kit. Let me get all this stuff here. It's something that you wear. I can't demonstrate it, but I will in a second through one of our assistants. So that while you're sitting on the plane, it keeps your neck in the upright position, resting on your chest, but not like this. I love the concept. I have to tell you, we tested it. We have a little video to show you whether the Kit Cup works, or I should say the Kip Kit works. Got to pronounce it right. Our trusty tester, Amanda Morris, was on a flight in France, and we had a camera crew there. Let's roll the video and show you how it's supposed to work. Remember, the whole idea is to not have your chin resting on your chest. So you have a couple of straps, a little cup there. You put it there. And that's how you're going to fly. Now, forgetting the fact that it looks like you're an automobile accident injury lawyer looking for a case or faking an accident. It's not that easy to put together. It's a little cumbersome. And with all due respect to the manufacturer, it's ugly. But forgetting how it looks, it doesn't work as well as you'd like to think. So we're not giving it a thumbs up today. It's a little cumbersome. I love the concept. I know why they tried to do it. I think they need a little bit more perfection in the product to really make it work, as ugly as it may look. And by the way, when I'm on a plane, I don't have to be beautiful. I just have to be comfortable. But you saw the picture, but I had to share it with you. The Kip Kit. Say that 3 times. Kip Kit. All right. Thank you, Amanda, for going through that small ordeal. And now it's time to go to our photo of the week. Let's do that. I love this photo for 2 reasons. First of all, I love the way it looks. I also happen to love where it was taken. Anybody want to take a guess? Well, Zanzibar. Yep, at Mateme Beach in Zanzibar, of course, which is in Tanzania. Beautiful at nighttime, and just some of the beautiful beaches you'll see there on places like Pemba Island. But anyway, that was taken by Kathy Stupinski. We want to thank her for that. And she said that she snuck out on the beach at night. The tide was way up and the sky was beautiful, as it indeed was. Thank you, Kathy, for that picture. If you've got one that you think qualifies as the photo of the week, you know what to do. Just send it in to us, peter@petergreenberg.com, and we'll show it right as we did today. And if you've not been to Tanzania, or especially to Zanzibar, you're in for a treat, especially the beaches on the Spice Islands where this was taken. So, Kathy, thank you again. Let's go to some of your questions that you sent in. Lindsay says, I was wondering if you'd help me with my trip that I take every other month. I go from Palm Springs to Seattle, Washington. Delta has a direct flight from Palm Springs to Seattle. So I tried to book my trip in mid-May. The nonstop flight PSP to Seattle is not there. I called Delta several times, and the Diamond Medallion Line person said they don't have any information. Well, this is why. Palm Springs is a seasonal flight destination, right? They from November to April, very popular for the snowbirds. Between May and August, I like to say it's a dry heat. My oven is also a dry heat. I don't want to be there, with all due respect to Palm Springs. That's why the airlines make it seasonal. They do have nonstop flights through April. One leaves at 3:40 in the afternoon, nonstop to Seattle. But May, they pull it out. Now you know. Rachel says, do you need to be vaccinated to travel to South Korea? Of course you do. Here's one from Valerie. What do you project for European travel by July in terms of COVID restrictions and testing? You're going to have COVID restrictions, and you're going to have testing, and you can go. How's that for an answer? Okay. Paula says, what's the best and most reliable RV company? We'll have that on our website in about 2 weeks. We're actually doing a story on that. But no matter what RV rental company you use, please listen to me. Do the driving test in the lot before you leave, because those right turns can be a bitch. That's a less than subtle hint. Julie says, what's the most popular destination for 2022 travel? I can't answer that. What I can say is what the criteria is, right? Obviously baked in social distancing, cost, medical care, and contact tracing, and the ability to get out. You know, I'll go anywhere, literally where there's an airport. Now these days you have to ask one more question. I'll go anywhere where there's an airport. Oh yeah, and the flights. Remember that. Nicole says, Peter, I will fly anywhere and I'm desperate to travel. Home airport is LAX. Where do you think would be the cheapest deal right now? Right now, with a few exceptions, they're all cheap. I told you the story last week. I'm going back from California to New York after the show on Saturday. My airfare is $108, nonstop on American. Dallas to New York, $32. The expensive places right now are the Caribbean, because we're getting into high season. Hawaii, that's a no-brainer. It's expensive. But Europe right now, nobody has to go get a suntan to experience and enjoy Europe. Check out the fares, not just in coach. You're going to see business class airfares right now matching what high season coach fares used to be. So check that out. Karina says, if not all countries have been offering their citizens the booster and some not due to their age, how can boosters be required to travel? Simple. You can't come in without it. That's how they're required. It's a public health issue. Right? No booster, no entry. That's what's going on. So there you go. And Al says, which travel insurance do you recommend now with COVID variants in mind? Well, we all learned a very painful lesson for those of you who bought travel insurance either before or during the pandemic, and you did that online, which you should never do. Because remember, you can't even complete the transaction online unless you either opt in or opt out of the insurance. You don't know what you're covered for. You don't know what you're not covered for. And then you found out very quickly that almost every policy that was written in 2019, 2020, and 2021 had on page like 105 of the policy, which you never got to, a clause that said, oh yeah, by the way, we don't cover for pandemic. Well, now Allianz and a new company called Kovac is doing what? Offering insurance that has that coverage. Not just coverage if you have the disease and have to be flown out, if you get tested positive for it and have to be quarantined. So check out those two companies, read the language carefully. There are different exclusions in each, but the good news is the insurance industry is at least pivoting to provide a much better product in the wake of COVID. Okay, let's go back and answer a few more questions. Hold on a second. Still going here, hold on. La, 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 la. Okay. Mary says, France requires a negative PCR test 48 hours before boarding your flight. Well, that's lovely. We require a negative test 24 hours before you board your flight home. So figure that out. Okay. Mary says, I lean face first on my backpack to sleep with my back straight. Okay. There you go. I take the big Darth Vader headphones, put on my playlist, and face plant on that tray table. Okay. Patty Ford says, this looks like the dental device. Yeah, you know what? If you're not careful, there might be a dentist on board who might operate. Paul says, but will it stop me from snoring? You know what? I think it might. Look, it just looks ugly and it's cumbersome. Mark Wexler. How are you, Mark? I have no idea where you are, but thanks for saying hi. I'm asked, when am I coming to Ras Al Khaimah again? We love Ras Al Khaimah, one of the Emirates. Great place to go. And you can fly in by seaplane from Abu Dhabi, which is really cool. All right. Here we go. Kay is saying, my kit design would strap around the back of the seat with enough elastic to rip it off quickly if needed. Oh, I get it. It's sort of like an elastic this, right? Okay, still ugly. Okay, let's go to, Vicky says, Corona, California, Zanzibar and Panama are top on my travel list. Interesting choices, okay. Okay, Ben wants to know your choice on the random testing on air arrivals in Canada. What's the point when you already have pre-departure testing and vaccine mandates prior to boarding? Here's the point. I know why they're doing it, because there have been so many false negatives as well as false positives. This is one extra added attraction, and it allows certain people to validate their jobs, okay? Okay, Geraldine says, how can you get a comfy flight from a coach seat on a long-haul flight without getting aches? Here's how you do it. There are secret seats on flights. That's right, secret coach seats. I'll be talking about that next week by seat number and airline. How about that? Based on the aircraft type and the individual configuration. You guys are pretty well aware of seatguru.com. That's the seat configuration of just about every flight you're going to be on. You can find those secret seats. And by the way, I'm not talking about the bulkhead seat, and I'm not talking about the exit row seat. I'm talking about coach seats. So how about that for a tease for next week? Okay. Marcia says, I booked my flight to Ireland in November by American. Now the airfare is almost doubled on premium economy. Glad I booked early. I told you that. Okay. And she's going to in June to Ireland. That's right. High season. All right. Dale, hi to Mary. Hi from Palm Beach. And she likes Alliance or Allianz for the insurance. Mary says, I've got insurance that pays $100 per day for medical delays. It sounds great, but you'll be paying a whole lot more than $100 if your hotel's not covered and your meals are not covered. Okay. Richard wants to know, do I hire somebody to help see the country when I travel to China? Could I do something like this? Let me tell you what I do. Not always, especially not when there's a language difficulty, but in many cases, I will call a hotel and see if there's a very inexpensive car and driver service, not a limo, just a guy with a car. And I'll ask him to take me to the neighborhood where he lives first, and we work our way out from there. Another way to see the country, in the neighborhoods, not just the usual suspect sites. Okay. Oh, Gene wants to know, why do I prefer the back of the plane? I didn't say I preferred it. I say that most of the time, well, I'll be honest, I cannot justify spending that much money on a business class or first class ticket. I just can't. I mean, sometimes you see the cost of a ticket. That's not a ticket, that's a Toyota. And let's not kid ourselves. We're not on the plane for the rich Corinthian leather, the food, the wine list, or anything. We're on the plane to go from point A to point B and not die. So I revert back to my college days. Now, if the airline wants to upgrade me because I have mileage status, or I can use miles to upgrade, which I don't think is an efficient way to do it, by the way, then, that's an option. But buying a business or first class ticket for me, I just have a problem with it. I'm not being cheap. I'm being practical. If I'm going to buy something, it has to have value to me. And I'm sorry. That's just how I feel. Roseanne says, you've been to Ecuador. Did you have a problem with altitude? No, but that doesn't mean you won't. The same thing applies to Peru. If you're going to go to Machu Picchu, if you're going up there, right, you want to stop on the way. You don't want to do it all in one day. Okay? Elizabeth says, hello from Los Angeles. Great weather here today, and great weather here today in San Diego. Reminding you that we're coming from the Hard Rock Hotel, and great location, by the way. Okay, lots of other stuff to get to, but we're running out of time. Again, some housekeeping notes. Any more questions to me? Easy. Email me, peter@petergreenberg.com. We'll answer it on the radio. That airs this Saturday. Check out the website for updates, including the piece we just did on Tulsa, Oklahoma. And of course, Hidden Turkey, Hidden Poland, airing on Amazon Prime and Apple TV Plus. And last but not least, get ready for the Royal Tour of Tanzania, April 18th. Check your local stations. And of course, I don't want to bury the lead, so I'll leave you with this. It's January 20th. Happy birthday to me. I'll see you guys next week.